hotter than expected, 3.5. This is 3/10 hotter than we looked at in the rearview mirror, 3.2. To find a bigger number than 3.5, you're going back to May of last year when it was, I am wrong, September of last year when it was 3.7. And finally, what many would consider the most important number, year over year, CPI core, 3.8.
You know, Brian, for years, Ford has been touting these two products, the next-gen pickup and this three-row SUV, as like nothing that you've ever seen before. And now we're just not going to see it for at least another 3 to 5 years for the SUV. And they were describing it as a bullet train, and it just kind of went away. And just to be clear, I mean, we're going to see a growth in EVs just by the sheer number of products in the industry, but hybrids are becoming more in vogue. But the biggest thing is the EV euphoria, which we've written about, it's dead.
I think it stands in stark contrast to the lack of fundraising that you see out of the Trump campaign. But as important is how they are raising it. He's down in Mar-a-Lago tonight with a bunch of billionaires, people like John Paulson, who not only wants to cut Social Security, but he's famous for, as a hedge funder, rooting against the American economy, betting against the American economy. So I guess it's no surprise that he's investing in somebody like Donald Trump, who's rooting for the economy to crash. But the whole lot of them is a bunch of billionaire scammers, extremists, and racists.
You know, people will say, oh, my power bill is constantly going up. You know, what do you say to people here in Georgia who may feel that frustration?
You're seeing the impacts, really, of climate change on people's heating bills, not just in Georgia, but around the country.
Today, my administration is announcing the first tranche of dislocated worker grants, fancy phrase, which is dimes. All it is there to make sure it helps create jobs for workers involved in the cleanup of this incident. Additional jobs.
More capital. He's a family man. We'll fight hard as governor. We'll take the stand. Conservative warrior. He's got the cause. He's the voice of the people. He'll never pause. In sanctuary cities, he takes a stand. Keeping our border strong. The land with historic tax cuts. He's got the plan. More capital. To West Virginia, more capital. Get it done. Standing tall for the rights of everyone.
And welcome back to the Unregulated Podcast. This is episode number 177 here on Wednesday, April 10th. And more is your man. That ad is just
terrible.
It's just great. It's so good.
It's incomprehensibly bad.
I want more of these. I want to get back to ads like these. I don't like the other ones.
I'm a huge fan of
this is so good.
I'm a huge fan.
Are you kidding me? Like, you hear that 6 times and you're gonna remember the jingle.
I wouldn't hear it 6 times because the second time I heard it, I'd change the channel.
My favorite part was like, how do you weave in like a border crisis?
Seriously. Look, you remember, was it,
that was the best part.
Was it last week when we ran the Hispanic bit, Hispanics for Trump bit? That music was great. It was fun. It was uplifting. This thing was like 3 cats tied together in a bag. It's awful.
I don't care. It's just, I like this trend. I want more jingles. You know what? Here's what I think what happened.
Yeah.
I think that everyone saw that ad during the Super Bowl, the Kennedy ad. Remember they juxtaposed?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's what all these consultants now.
Yeah.
Right. This is what they're going to offer their clients.
Yeah.
Right.
And
just remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are tax collectors and campaign consultants.
Yeah.
That's our sort of hierarchy, okay? Because they're all going to get paid win or lose. But if they're just going to follow this trend, I'm going to enjoy it for a little while.
You know, we should just start doing jingles. I mean, what the hell? At a 30% markup? How complicated could it be?
Oh,
I mean,
good.
if that thing is playing, you know what? I'm going to start singing on political campaigns. That's what I'm going to do.
I don't know what to say. Sticky.
It's a total eclipse of the heart.
Hotter. Our man Rick Santelli, which there are a number of, I could do any number of short clips to bring up this issue of the unrelenting inflation that we are suffering through. But I just love Rick Santelli. He's untouchable.
There's two
things.
He's
untouchable.
Here's the thing about Rick. I figured it out. He's the anti-Joe Biden. Rick Santelli never wanders around on his point. He's just like, bam. He's like, it's terrible. It's 0.3% above. Bam, bam. He just throw rocks at you until you pay attention to him. He's like I said, he's the anti-Joe Biden. He doesn't sit around and go, well,
Wait, you mean the key bridge? I'm jumping around the clips here, but what did he say?
It's like a foreign language. Like I said last time, you got to kind of relax and listen to it, but I had no idea.
You nailed it last week, but I was hoping that you would figure it out this week.
No. It's we should tie. You know what? That's a campaign ad waiting to happen. Rick Santelli on one side and Joe Biden on the other. Who do you want to have running the country?
All right, going back to inflation, let me just sort of set this here for everybody, because we play these clips a lot, and I'm sure a lot of our folks understand. But let's get down to brass tacks here and talk about how bad inflation has gotten. Okay? And you can razzle dazzle with the numbers, but here is the bottom line. Subway's new campaign is 6 inches for $6.
That's pretty grim. I didn't see that. Really?
They're advertising that their 6-inch sandwich is $6.
I remember those things used to be going for $1.85, man.
No, $5. They built their entire business around the $5.
The footlong $5. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. The $5 footlong. Yeah. What are the footlongs now?
They just want us to memory hole the whole $5 footlong.
Well, I can't say I blame them.
We're at $6 for 6 inches, and that is a problem. That is the problem right there. Because who feels that? All those dudes in the morning when I walk past Subway who are in all of their orange vests, who are having lunch at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
That's who this is eating into, folks.
Yeah. I said this off record, but commodity prices are up about 18% in the last couple of months. That's always a precursor to inflation. Always. So it's probably going to get worse.
It is going to get worse. Did you see
Ron? If you think about it, we're going to sail into this tax Mageddon thing at the top of 2025 and the debt ceiling with this as context music. So it's going to be hard for the United States government, whoever's the president, it's going to be hard for the United States government to continue to spend at this level
of dollars.
At this level of deficits, right? We just can't. We just cannot. The system cannot handle it anymore, obviously. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just wondering if you had caught Ron Klain's hot mic moment.
Yeah, okay, first off, I think a lot of things about Ron Klain, but I guarantee you that was not accidental. That was
set it up.
That was purpose. Well, he was talking to some group, some Marxist front group. I can't remember the name of them. And he was asked, like, what do you think President Biden should do to improve his election chances? And he gave a bunch of answers, but the answer that caught everybody's attention was stop pretending ribbon cuttings at bridges are going to do anything for you, right? You should address the elephant in the room and talk about prices of gasoline and eggs and things that people care about, and what you're going to do about it. And he made the right. Again, Klain is a very skilled guy. He made the right assessment of the situation. People don't care what you've done for them. They want to know what you are going to do for them. And
can I give you the exact quote?
Yeah, please do.
I think the president is out there too much talking about bridges. He does 2 or 3 events a week where he's cutting a ribbon on a bridge. You go to the grocery store and eggs and milk are expensive. The fact that there's a bleeping bridge is not. And then he went on to say, I think that it also doesn't get covered much because, look, it's a bleeping bridge. Like, it's a bridge. How interesting is the bridge? It's a little interesting, but it's not that interesting. I think he's a little unhinged there, huh?
Yeah, I have to. Sorry, I read all that and I thought, well, there's a guy who's lived in Washington for too long, right? Because out in America, bridges are important, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you got to detour 20 miles out of your way, and you know they build a bridge that's brand new and shiny and wonderful, and there's no traffic on it, and it clips 20 minutes off your trip, that's important to you. But I take his larger point, right? That you cut the ribbon, and then you come back, you know, hopefully 2 years later, and there's a bridge, and you cut that ribbon, and everyone's happy. Meanwhile, in the intervening 104 weeks, people have paid too much for gas and milk, for gasoline and milk. And that's his point, right? You got to do something about that.
$6 subs.
There you go. It like I said, I don't think it was accidental. I don't think what? They're recording me? I'm shocked. You know, I mean, come on.
It's like, look, Joe, take some advice from your old pal.
Well, you know, it's also instructive. It tells you something about the flow of communication in that world, right? That they're obviously not listening to him. So this was his way to kind of flag it for him, which is...
It'll be his I told you so later on if the...
That's a level of cynicism I hadn't considered, but you're probably right.
Yeah, well, you stick around this town as long as we have, and those moments of cynicism become more frequent, unfortunately. All right, so I threw this clip in about the big announcement from Ford, mainly because I love these said. The guy was like, yeah, you know, Ford's been saying that these products are going to be like you've never seen before, but now we're just not going to see them.
Yeah, you've never seen before, and you're not going to see them since or ever. Thank you.
I mean, the street is like, okay, all right, we're done here. Let's move on to some other shiny toy, right?
You know, the great thing about having an adversary is they help you focus. And the great thing about it is now all the automakers are focused on the Chinese threat from BYD, right? And they're going to need tariffs, and their competitive advantage is not going to be building electric vehicles. Their competitive advantage is going to be building gasoline-powered cars that are big and have horsepower and are sold to American consumers who want more space and more range and more ability to tow. And that's, you know, the conversation's completely changed in the last 6 months. It's just all this nonsense is kind of washing out of the system.
I think they're happy to make some EVs and I think they're happy to make more hybrids because that's the happy medium so far that American consumers seem to want to gravitate towards.
Well, I mean, because hybrids are a perfect encapsulation of what Americans want. They want to appear virtuous without actually being virtuous. They want to be able to drive
a product that. I mean, they also want a product that one of the most important things that, you know, enable you to be mobile and earn a living for your family is your ability to go from A to B in a reliable fashion. And I think they want that too.
Yeah, so. I'm not mad at them for buying a hybrid. I'm just like, it is the car that carries with it a healthy dose of propaganda.
It's right, exactly. Look, leave me alone. I bought a hybrid.
I buy a hybrid.
Done.
No, I
recycle.
I mean, I never actually run the thing on the electric side, but just shut up. I have to be honest with you. I kind of like it. Any product that carries its own propaganda, you got to be in favor of.
As Van Halen said, they get the best of both worlds. All right, Secretary Jenny is blaming climate change for high electricity prices in Georgia.
By the way, I like the segue from Van Halen to our Canadian friend.
Thank you.
I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to offend anybody. But
I've only had like 4 cups of coffee.
But if you know, you know. I'm sorry. What did Secretary Granholm say?
President Biden has sending his loyal soldiers out to the battleground states, and Secretary Jenny was in Georgia and fielded a question from a reporter about why Georgians are paying so much for electricity, and she said, it's that sticky, it's that awful climate change. That's what's going on. So,
God Almighty, the
it's
quality of intellect in American politics is so bad. I'm amazed we're not already in a shooting war. We're so hopeless. You hear stuff like that, and you're thinking, you can't be real. That can't be real. That's probably real.
It's climate change. It's right up there with Secretary Pete.
I would point out,
trashing you for your landline. That's the thing. These guys just hate people.
You know what?
And like they
if we
hate people.
If we
they hate us. They think we suck because we want stuff.
If we had a sense of humor,
as one of our good listeners said, they're just weird.
They're just weird. I said that actually.
I said that. As one of our good listeners emphasized.
We should say it more often.
They're just weird. They're just weird ass. Like they just talk and they think that they're saying something that.
Well, the funny thing is
somehow resonating with us. Like it's exactly what Ron Klain said. I don't care about your bridge. I want to know why I'm paying so much for my eggs.
The funny thing is I'm pretty sure Georgia has some of the lowest rates in the country. Electricity.
Yeah, they got a shiny new reliable power plant.
Shiny reliable. You know what we're gonna do? I'm gonna call up 366-4000, which is the landline number for the Secretary of Transportation. I'm gonna ask him, like, is this thing a landline? Because if it's, have you talked to the Secretary about this? Because I don't. It seems.
We should do a whole show on clips. So much more fun.
It would be kind of fun.
We should do the clip and talk about it. Let's get some feedback, folks. But until then, do you have any announcements?
Yeah, I'm going to make an announcement this week because I'm sure I'll forget it next week. And that is in approximately 9 days. In 9 days, the author of this year's podcast, Mr. Pyle, has a birthday.
Co-host.
Has a founder and co-host and guy who does all the actual work, has a birthday. So if you're thinking about getting him a birthday gift, I've given you 9 days. 9 days.
Nine times.
9 days. And we're taking names, guys. We're taking names. So if there aren't gifts coming.
Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, Bueller.
Remember Ferris Bueller? You've been absent 9 times.
I'm going to have to barf up a lung.
Well, I don't have any announcements other than thank you very much for that. I actually do have one other announcement, and now that I think about it. I complimented you personally on it, but I wanted to point our viewers to your Easter, the piece you wrote in the Washington Times about Easter. Thank you for writing that.
No, thank you.
And however you were inspired to do so. I imagine I know why you were inspired to do so, but
I appreciate that.
We'll put it in the show notes. It was just so good.
It is one of the few things I've ever written that I'm proud of, and I thought it was good too. So I appreciate you saying that.
You're quite welcome, sir. All right, what happened today was a little bit. Let's say not such a great day today in history.
Okay.
Not such a great day.
Not such a great day that nothing happened, or the bad stuff happened.
No, just the stuff that happened kind of sucked.
Okay,
so, couple of highlights, but all right. The first is on this day in 1912.
On this day in 1912,
it has nothing to do with war.
The Titanic sunk. The Titanic sunk.
Close, very close. It embarked.
Oh, from
its voyage
from Belfast,
from
Belfast, or from I don't know that English port that I can't remember. Liverpool.
Yeah, it began. It was the day that they all cheered and waved goodbye.
Yeah, they rolled out of Liverpool,
and rolled out of town.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, that
which it was about 3 or 4 days later when it actually struck the iceberg.
Yeah.
So.
It was built in Belfast yards.
The unsinkable Titanic. That's bad marketing there.
Look, you can't trust the Irishman to do anything right. Come on.
All right. In 1938, this happened.
1938, two things happened. First off, the Von Trapp family started singing for the first time in Austria. And second...
I thought you were going to say Bonnie Raitt unveiled Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Oh, shoot, I missed my chance there.
That was a little bit later in history. She's still with us.
My second guess is the Germans won the plebiscite that was held in Austria.
Damn, you are good.
Yeah, they did.
This was the
Anschluss. Yeah.
Approved in Austria.
Yeah.
In a controlled plebiscite.
And it wasn't even close, by the way. It was like 90.
Yeah, it was 99.7%.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Russian election.
Yeah. So this is worth talking about for 10 seconds because it's something.
That's why I brought it up.
Something I've been thinking about. At the end of World War I, there were a bunch of referendums held in what was essentially the Austro-Hungarian Empire, as the Allied forces wanted to dismember that empire, right? Because the emperor was, in fact, had been deposed, and they're like, we're not picking another emperor, so we need to figure out something to do with these nations and these tribes and whatnot that stretched from, Vienna all the way down into the Black Sea. So they said, hey, we're going to have everybody have a referendum on what country you want to be part of, right? So present-day Austria voted to be part of Germany. And that answer did not please the Allied forces, so they ignored it. So when Americans, the only American exposure to the Anschluss is, of course, in The Sound of Music, where it's, the Nazis are bad, Yeah, the Nazis may have been bad, but you know what? It was the second time in 17 years that the Austrians had voted to join up with the Germans. It turns out that Germans that language and shared history is a hell of a lot more important than transitory political things, and the I don't know how to say this nicely, but what the Allied forces did to Austria in the wake of World War I was corrected in large measure by the Anschluss. And of course, in World War II, after World War II, nobody asked anybody, right?
Yeah.
The Americans just like, hey, here's what we're going to do. Here's your line. Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
So,
well, the other point to this though is it was earlier in the year that the chancellor announced a referendum on a possible union.
Yep.
But they weren't moving fast enough for Adolf.
Yeah, so we want to move right along.
And so that's when Hitler threatened to invade Austria.
Yeah,
so,
but I mean,
there's a little bit of
the funny thing is
thumb on the scale.
There's no violence. There's no violence in the reunion. There's no violence. Just like there was no violence when the Nazi Reich took over Sudetenland, right? In modern day the Czech Republic. I don't know how to say this. I want to say it the right way, but a huge amount of friction on this planet are when people who want to be together are not allowed to be together.
And people who don't want to be together are being forced to be together. Right?
Exactly. And if we as Americans have no conception of the power of ethnicity or religion, because we're just like we're a mutt. The whole country's full of mutts. We have no conception of this. But the Europeans who have lived next to each other for 5,000 years, they have well-defined and carefully granulated concepts of all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And when Americans get involved, we just bumble around and make things worse usually. Sorry.
We think we're capable of fixing things.
Everything.
We all know that we're not.
But see, didn't you like that I got The Sound of Music in there too?
That was very good.
And by the way, one last thing. If you've never been to Salzburg, go. It's the third most beautiful city.
That was one of your Christmas vacations,
yes,
right?
It's the third most beautiful city in all of Christendom. It's just a city. It's a town. It's really gorgeous. It's silly good looking. I'm like, as my son stood on a hill overlooking the whole place. He's just like, this is like a postcard. This is weird. There's no way this actually looks like this.
This is weird. It's like some movie. All right, this was not a very good event in history. This happened in 1942.
April of
1942.
April of 1942. The Germans invaded Russia.
No, they may have.
1942. That was a year earlier. I'm sorry.
This was the day after the surrender of the main Philippine island of Luzon
Oh,
to
yeah.
the Japanese.
Oh, yeah.
75,000 Filipino and American troops captured on the Bataan Peninsula began a forced march to a prison camp.
Wow. Now, there's some...
During this infamous trek, known as the Bataan Death March, the prisoners were forced to march 85 miles in 6 days with one meal of rice during the entire journey. By the end of the march, which was punctured with atrocities committed by the Japanese guards, hundreds of Americans and many more Filipinos had died.
Well, I give them whoever wrote that nonsense, I give them full credit for at least including the Japanese did something. These Americans were forced to do this. Well, I'm sorry. By who? By whom?
Yeah.
So let's just clear up the historical record. The Japanese did to the Americans what they had previously done to the Filipinos and to the Chinese, and that is engaged in barbarity. Now, I love the Japanese. I consider them a trustworthy and sturdy ally of the United States. But let's not kid ourselves. 75 years ago, it was barbarism. And yeah, I'm sorry I didn't have a date for that. I should remember that death march. I apologize.
Okay, this one is a little lighter.
Yeah, how could it not be?
1953. This happened in 1953 on April 10th.
Bob Feller pitched a no-hitter.
No. On this day, the horror film The House of Wax, featuring Vincent Price, opened at New York's Paramount Theater, becoming the first color 3D film to open in America. And by the way, as just a little note, 3D movies still suck. That's all I have to say. Wow. They do not impress me in any way. And a little known actor by the name of Charles Bushinsky, who played the supporting role of Jared's mute servant, who would go on to achieve international fame as one Charles Bronson.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They always change their name, like these
come
producers.
On. They had
these Hollywood types are
they
like,
had to.
You can't go with Bronsky. Let's butch it up a little. You're Bronson from now on.
I mean, you know his story, right? Charlie Bronson.
Charles Bushinsky.
Charles Bushinsky. Yeah, well, I'm sure Charles wasn't his first name either. Charles Bushinsky. Anyway, his dad was a coal miner in Pennsylvania. He was the youngest, I think, of 12 or 13 or 14. Went to war. Went to World War II. He was I want to say a turret gunner or a tail gunner on a B-17. Flew 30 missions, got wounded a couple, 3-4 times. This guy's a legitimate American hero, right? And then wandered off into Hollywood to do movies. He's one of the few tough guys in Hollywood history who's like a legit tough guy.
Tough.
Yeah, a legit tough guy.
Wait, no, stop. Tom Cruise does his own stunts. So don't dismiss him. All right, okay, this is for Alex, our producer. This is a combo. This is a 2-for-1 Masters edition. Okay? In 1961, this happened, and in 1975, something else happened.
What day is it? It's April 10.
Yeah, 1961, a South African known as Gary Player became the first international Masters champion.
Okay.
And in 1975, a gentleman named Lee Elder became the first black golfer to play in the Masters.
Okay.
So
it's golf, right?
Yeah, it is golf, sir.
Okay, so it's like stamp collecting for people who like to walk.
Some people really like that golf thing. So, we're trying to grow our audience.
Yeah, we call those people old white guys. We got plenty of old white guys.
Yeah, I got one more because I know you love Ireland so much.
I think we got a hammerlock of the old white guy community.
I got one more. I didn't know how long we'd go, so I've stretched out this day in history. Sorry, listeners. But this one was in 1998.
In Ireland?
Yes,
this was the Good Friday Accords.
You are right, sir.
Yeah.
You are so good at this game. Yes, sir. The Good Friday Agreement was signed, calling for a devolved government in Northern Ireland. The accord was ratified by Ireland and Northern Ireland the following month. How is that?
It's okay. I would just point out there's no such thing as Northern Ireland. I appreciate you saying that, though. There's the north of Ireland, but there's no such thing as Northern Ireland.
Well, they're calling it that.
I get it. Illegitimate governments tend to name themselves. I get it.
All right, that's it. Where do we want to start this week? Well, actually, where should we continue this week? Since we're already about 45 minutes in.
No, we're not. I don't know.
You want to shoot? Should we do a Capitol Hill update real quick, and then we can roll through some articles? Or
yeah, sure. The Capitol Hill update's easy.
Yeah.
The House Republicans want to do Section 702 of the FISA reforms, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act.
And that's this week, right?
They wanted to do it this morning, but they already Trump blew him up last night, right? I can't remember what he said. I don't even care what he said about it, but he said something about it, and that essentially derailed the opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, just let me interrupt you for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, get used to this phrase. Trump blew it up.
Yeah, I mean, look, so the leadership guy and I. The leadership guy who's working on this and I were supposed to have lunch. It was supposed to be that easy a vote. I hit him at 9 o'clock. I'm like, hey, man. I said, we good? He's like, we were until that Trump message blowing up FISA. Scrambling now. Maybe I can manage a beer later. So I'm like, good. That's it for me today. So that's that, right? The thing about FISA is that the Republicans are split almost evenly down the middle between people who care about.
Can you just share, tell people what FISA is, so in case they're
Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is the act that
what's the point of it?
It theoretically limits the ability of the FBI and the CIA and the rest of the alphabet soup to spy on Americans by setting out boundaries as to when they need to turn off their listening devices, how long they can keep material that they've retrieved, how do they access data. It's what they need warrants for and what courts they can get the warrants from, right? There's a specific FISA court to go get secret warrants. And over the years, it's been subject to a lot of abuse, right? Obviously, because once you give guys with guns and badges the ability to do stuff, guess what? They take it as a license to do everything. So... there have been multiple attempts over the years, including when I was in the White House, right, to try to put a leash on some of this. But invariably, the law and order crowd, which we should probably say the kick in the door and do whatever the hell you want cops crowd, the law and order crowd is always like, we can't ever do anything that's going to have any possibility of impairing national security and or police activity. So... this thing is like the last one cratered on the FISA court warrants, right? This one's going to crater on the same thing. So anyway, it's not going to happen. So I encourage everybody to not worry about it. But for those of you who love liberty, think seriously about telling your member of Congress that the cops aren't always right. Just because you give guys a badge doesn't make them always right. And I feel ashamed that I have to tell American citizens that thing, right? So that's FISA. And then the other thing we're, of course, working on is the endless, pointless, may never happen Ukrainian supplemental bill.
Yeah. So Ukraine is a sticky wicket for Speaker Johnson, who, by the way, has survived 168 days now. And I wonder if every morning he wishes...
Can I tell you? Can I tell you real quick? I hit a staffer up on Friday. One of his staffers. I'm like, "How you doing?" And he said, "Well, the key to the lock on the door still works in the office. So I guess I'm still working here."
So over the recess, the speaker's and his crew floated a Repo Act / approve the LNG export applications that were being held hostage by Biden's political shenanigans. Apparently, it's not gaining a whole bunch of traction within the rank and file of the GOP. They're still and for good reason, they're still firmly of the belief that it should be paired with H.R. 2, which, to remind our listeners, is the comprehensive immigration border security package that the House Republicans passed about a year ago now.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they're caught in the same they're caught in a problem, right? If they have to include the LNG, they have to include border security, they have to do something about Ukraine, they have to do something about Israel. They don't have to, but the president's going to want it, right? The tricky thing is if you include all that stuff, you certainly don't have enough votes to go through suspension. You certainly don't have votes to go through suspension because there's probably 24 Democrats who are going to vote against it just on the Israeli stuff alone. And there's a real serious question if you try to go through a regular order. Do you pick up enough Democrats on the Israeli thing to offset the Democrats you're going to lose, and blah blah blah. So this is a very tricky bit of vote counting.
It is tricky, but it's also called Congress.
Yeah. I'm not.
Maybe it's okay.
If we
maybe it's okay.
Look,
maybe it's okay if it's not preordained.
Well, I'll be completely honest with you. My main concern in the bill is the LNG language, right? I got a dog in that particular hunt.
Sure.
If you told me that the only thing Congress was going to pass the rest of the year was deeming those 4 hostages, LNG projects hostages, deeming them approved, I'd be like, sure, done, peace. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go home now.
Listen, that is such a narrow view, Mr.
It is what Congress should do. It is curing the difficulties and stupidities of the executive branch.
That is true.
I'm okay with the Ukrainians not getting $60 billion extra bucks. I really don't care.
The other thing that is happening this week is Senator Schumer is desperately seeking Susan
Collins. What are we talking about?
He would like very much to dismiss the Senate trial of the impeachment of Homeland Secretary Mayorkas, and would likely need maybe a Republican or so to do so. And I think his likely targets are Susan Collins and Mitt Romney are likely going to deliver the votes for Schumer not to have to go through a trial. As you all know, Secretary Mayorkas was impeached by the House, and it is typical for the Senate to actually have a trial, but I don't know if it's going to happen. So
I hope not. We're wasting. I don't say we're wasting our time. Congress not doing anything that doesn't really hurt my feelings. I don't want this to happen. I think this is a bad precedent. I mean, I get this guy is a bad guy, but so far we have no crimes. I'm like, I'm kind of with Schumer. I'm like, what do you guys got? Let's have it.
Let's do a historical. Let's do a historical recap of impeachment. One president was impeached until Bill Clinton was impeached, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Andrew Johnson.
And then when Bill Clinton was impeached...
In the wake of the Civil War, by the way.
Yes. And when Bill Clinton was impeached... let me go back a little bit further. President Nixon resigned before the House began the impeachment proceedings.
That doesn't count. But that doesn't count. Yeah.
No, I know, but the point is that it was something that he spared.
Yeah.
He spared the country.
Yeah.
Right? Then we had Bill Clinton impeached.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Now we've had President Trump impeached twice.
Yeah.
And we have a Homeland Secretary, Secretary of the Cabinet impeached.
Yeah.
And there is a burning desire on behalf of a significant chunk of the Republicans to impeach Joe Biden as well.
It's just so ridiculous.
So, do we need to do we need to do something here about impeachment, or is this something that'll kind of phase out?
It's something that'll phase out. It's something that'll phase out. I've said this before. I'll say it again. it's going to phase out because you can't. Grown people are not going to want to spend their lives doing this stuff. It's pointless, right? And what this exposes is we have a lot of not bright people in the Republican Congress, right? Who can't figure out this is a colossal waste of time. It's not getting you anything, either politically or substantively. The other thing I've thought for now a couple of years is if I was Joe Biden, I'd pardon Trump.
Well, he could pardon Hunter at the same time, right?
Pardon Hunter, pardon Trump, give a general amnesty. You think about the range wars, you think about the Civil War, and you think about the range wars in the West in the generation immediately after the Civil War. How those things all wound up was general amnesty. The president or the governors gave everybody general amnesty. Yeah. At a certain point, you just got to be like, this is stupid.
Isn't that how we solve our immigration problem every however many years?
Wow.
General amnesty, right?
Yeah, immigration's a little bit different kettle of fish. But
I know.
You get where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I do. At some point, somebody will be a grown up again in politics.
And the funny thing is, for Joe Biden, it would be a great fun thing to do because you have to accept the pardon. If you're Trump, you're like, oh, do I take that? Do I not take it? It would really, put it to him. And I'm sure all the Biden guys are, this is the worst thing ever. It's horrible. It's terrible. You're destroying the republic. But the smart Democrats would be like, that's brilliant. Because you basically have to acknowledge your guilt to accept the pardon.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Because he's not in charge, as you know.
Well, he's also,
he's also a mean old cranky dude.
He's a guy who can't finish a sentence, for God's sake. Yeah. What do you figure his chances of doing, thinking through this?
I'm on the foothills of the Himalayas. So, all right, my friend. This came from Cato, a guy named Adam Michael.
Yes.
Wrote a piece earlier in the month. Energy tax subsidies could top $1.8 trillion.
Yeah.
Biden administration estimates show that the U.S. government could spend more than $1.8 trillion over 10 years on energy subsidies if they are made permanent.
Yeah.
These costs could increase even further as new regulations such as the recently finalized tailpipe rule, which is the car ban, call it what it is, and proposed power plant rule, which is a ban on new coal and natural gas electricity plants, force greater adoption of tax credit eligible technologies.
Yeah. Yeah, that score's been
$1.8 trillion.
That score's been, well, okay, that's not really a score, but that number's been doing a steady climb upwards, right?
Trillion, folks.
Yeah,
and this is your tax dollars that you send to Washington.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I know enough to be skeptical of that score, but Goldman Sachs came up with their own score of 1.2 trillion, and that was a year ago, I want to say now. So
yes.
So it's in line. A reminder, the bill originally scored at $366 billion.
Yeah.
So somebody at CBO probably needs to get fired. And then the next thing that needs to happen is we probably need to take a hard look at some of these tax credits, because I'm sure the biggest driver of it is electric vehicles. I'm certain of that, right? Whatever that 1.8 number is made up of.
Yeah.
The biggest single piece is the EV tax credit. Also, I'm really profoundly skeptical about two other tax credits that tend to drive the number big. One is the hydrogen tax credit. The other is the CCS, the carbon capture and sequestration tax credit, because neither of those are going to get accessed. Nobody's going to really sequester carbon in any great amount. I that's going to get me in trouble with some customers. So let me qualify it and say,
attempts will be made, but the technology may not.
Even if you took all 40 projects on the board right now and approved them, you'd still be talking about a difference in scale and scope between what is and what would need to happen, right? So.
Yeah, and this section is what I call, there's a whole lot of money. I don't have a name for this section other than I'm just going to rattle off these numbers so people understand. So put down, you guys are listening, write down 1.8 trillion. Is that what I said?
1.8, yes, sir.
Okay, here's another one. This is from Politico. Biden deploys 6.6 billion to boost global chip maker in key swing state.
Arizona. It wasn't even an American chip maker. It's a Taiwanese.
The Biden administration announced a $6.6 billion grant on Monday. This was just this Monday, designed to commit the world's top chip maker to mass produce its next generation of microchips in Arizona. The first time ever we will be making at scale the most advanced semiconductor chips on the planet here in the United States. The grants and tax breaks will go to Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC.
Yeah, that as provided for in the CHIPS Act.
$6 billion, folks. 6.6. Add that to the list of your taxpayer dollars going to major corporations to do what they are supposed to do, which is make products for a profit.
Yeah, I mean, I bet you $6 billion is close to what TSMC made last year. Made profit, right? I bet you it's close.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they're gonna have a couple of right good years here on, for
Okay, are you ready for this? Now, this particular one is a little bit less straightforward in that it's going to people who actually don't do anything other than make your life miserable. This is from E&E News on April 4th. U.S. starts Green Bank to finance community climate projects. The Biden administration announced recipients of the Climate Law's biggest grant program Thursday, kicking off a $20 billion, write it down, $20 billion effort to transform community lending and green the U.S. economy. EPA will award 8 grants under the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, ranging in size from $400 million to almost $7 billion. The largest will go to Climate United, a partnership that includes a nonprofit impact investment firm and 2 affordable housing lenders.
And
3
get out the vote efforts.
Walking around. This is also called walking around money. This is insane.
I think it's great.
This is literally the United States government is handing money to organizations that work diligently in quote unquote communities to do what?
Get out the vote.
Help get out the vote.
I mean,
for the party who's giving them the grants.
I mean, I'm pretty confident they're not showing up in my suburb. Insane. It's great. It's great.
I mean, if
Philadelphia has
the House wants to do something, they should have serious hearings on this stuff.
See, there you go. Take the $60 billion you want to give to Ukraine. Take it from the climate bill.
Yeah,
and say, hey, these. You know what? You know what we should do? And here's an idea. I want you to think about it before you say no. We should see if, there's a recent story about how the Loan Guarantee Office in the Department of Energy had $200 billion they couldn't give away. Why don't we just have Ukraine apply to Jigger Shaw for a loan? And that to buy energy efficient weapons or something. And that way
is perfect.
That way Jigger can get his money out the door and the Ukrainians can get their cash, and the guys in America who always want to be killing somebody somewhere, they got their guns. It's a win-win-win.
Oh, by the way, and I'm trying to find it in this article. Here it is. Coalition for Green Capital, which represents state and local green banks, will get $5 billion of this $20 billion under the NCIF competition to capitalize green banks and finance qualified projects. Power Forward Communities, which includes electrification nonprofit Rewiring America, will receive $2 billion. Does that ring a bell to you, Rewiring America?
Yeah, it does. Why? I can't quite place it.
Because Stacey Abrams joined Rewiring America.
Yeah. Well, election deniers need money too.
So,
I mean, am I wrong in saying
you don't believe me that this is walking around money?
Is she not an election denier? She's an election denier, right?
She's an election She's an election.
She denied the president won the 2016 election. I'm confident.
She denied she lost her own election.
She denied she lost her own election. Yeah. So apparently we need to get some kind of racket going, take some money of our own here.
Yeah. So
you know what? The great thing is the audits of these things in a couple of years are going to be amazing. It's going to be epic.
I'm laughing, but guys, this is exactly what this whole thing is about. They call it climate change, and all of this is in the name of climate change. The only beneficiaries of climate change remediation from the United States government and the Biden administration is billions of dollars of federal taxpayer money being funneled into corporations and organizations that support the democratic infrastructure. That's it.
Why do you have to be that way? You're changing people's lives, Tom.
Yeah.
You know what? If somebody gave me $2 billion, it would change my life.
Yeah. I wish we didn't have a prohibition on government grants.
I just
here at the American Energy Alliance, because I could do some climate mitigation too.
Seriously, man, I'd move away from the country. Take my carbon footprint with me. I'd move to like Jamaica or someplace. I don't know.
I brought all this up because I wanted to point out to our listeners that Treasury Secretary Yellen has visited China recently, and she's very concerned about some stuff going on there. And she really needed to make it clear to the Chinese leadership that they do need to reconsider. During events on Friday of last week, Yellen reiterated her criticism. This is from Bloomberg. Saying government subsidies in the world's second largest economy have resulted in capacity that, quote, significantly exceeds China's domestic demand, as well as what the global market can bear. And that it is a shared concern heard from her meeting with American and Japanese businesses earlier in the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of I don't know how the Japanese the Chinese rather kept from laughing at her. I mean, I would have been like, hey, do you guys know what the Department of Treasury has been doing for the last couple of years, lady? I mean,
her own agency.
I was going to say you personally have seen the largest subsidization of things ever in the history of the planet, ever, anywhere. Congratulations.
Yeah. So it's apparently it's okay for us to do it, but certainly not acceptable for the Chinese. That's what I'm reading here. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm getting.
I like I said, I have no idea how the Chinese didn't laugh. I would have said something. This is probably why I'm not made for government, because I would have just raised my hand and said, hey, I don't mean to be that guy, but what it is you guys think you do for a living at the Department of Treasury? You literally subsidize stuff.
All right, we talked a little bit about Ford and how they're shelving their cars that everyone's going to want, but apparently they don't want to make. And then this was a fun little doozy. One of our listeners sent it over. This is from Electrek. Canoe, Canoo, EV startup Canoe, not like Robbie Canoe.
Gotta be Canoe.
Paid, ready for this? Paid $1.7 million for CEO Tony Aquila's private jet bills.
Really?
Hold on. Twice its total revenue last year.
Wow.
According to its earnings report released this week, Canoe lost $302 million in 2023. But apparently it's all champagne and caviar for its top executive. Cano, which hasn't turned a profit as a public company, brought in $886,000 in revenue last year, according to its full-year earnings report filed Monday. But as TechCrunch first cited, Aquila's heavy travel bill included air travel expenses for either, at our option, first-class airfare or the business use of his jet, the company said at the filing.
Wow. That seems
This company doesn't even have to work that hard. You know who their biggest client is?
The Department of Defense.
Close. NASA.
Okay.
Yeah, literally. So the bar's not very high for a company that provides vehicles for the federal government, but
that's kind of whatever. Okay.
And then
we're in the wrong line of work, apparently.
Apparently, there's a Lincoln project for electric cars. Did you know this?
I'm sorry, Lincoln. What are they?
There's a Lincoln project for electric cars.
Yeah, I mean, I assume there's the Democrats for electric cars.
No.
That's the Lincoln project.
Mike Murphy.
Oh, I did see this.
Did you see this?
I read like the first two paragraphs, and right away I was like,
for
okay,
those who
I'm done
don't know
watching.
who Mike Murphy is, Mike, would you like to share your opinion about who Mike Murphy is in a polite fashion?
I'd probably get sued for something if I did.
So he grew. It starts with I grew up in and around Detroit in the '70s, so naturally I'm a car guy.
Why is all these guys got to do this stuff?
I'm also a veteran Republican political consultant with a warning from my party. Slam the brakes on electric vehicle bashing. It will cost you on election day.
God almighty. It's so bad. So the last guy
to cut through the noise. I set up the EV politics project earlier this year.
Let me just stop you right there real quick. Let me stop you right there because that's as far as I got in the article. And this is what bothers me about it, and it's pure vintage Mike. I set up an EV thing. Let me translate that into English. Some deep-pocketed guy gave him a bunch of money to set this thing up. Okay, now go ahead, now that I've rewritten that lead for you.
We ultimately took a national poll to get a sense of the politics surrounding the EV issue.
Mike wrote a poll. To make sure the 600 people that we knew.
600 people across the household with incomes of $50,000 a year or above, so we could zero in on the new car market. I can't even read it with a straight face.
I can, and you know what? As I read what they did, I'm like, basically they cooked a survey. But go ahead, keep reading. It gets better.
Why such Republican hostility towards electric vehicles? It's tribal. In our modern politics, any friend of my enemy must be my enemy too. If Joe Biden is for EVs, we must be against them. Okay. So anyway,
so there you go. The architect of John McCain's win in 2008 has that to say. So good luck.
EV bashing is dumb politics for the GOP and worse.
Yeah,
it's terrible policy for American jobs.
Hey, by the way,
he doesn't know anything about anything to do with this issue. Let me make it absolutely clear. So, I'm not going to spend any more time.
Wait a minute, I wanted to.
There's a whole lot of money to be made out there if you're a Republican who would like to advance the left's agenda. I've seen it firsthand here in the energy space.
Tom, Mike's beyond such things. He would only write books like that. Disclosed what had been previously private and understood to be private conversations. He's not going to just go ahead and sell his soul to be in favor of EVs. What kind of person do you think he is? I challenge you to a duel.
Here's his close.
Oh no!
There's a path to watching dozens of American auto plants close as vital U.S. industrial capacity melts away. This is the real political economic bloodbath, and it will surely not make America great again.
What the hell's he talking about?
If America steps away from the electric vehicle future, China will step in and utterly dominate the. It's literally the talking points.
Seriously,
of the
Biden
Biden administration.
I'm like, well, this is
literally
so
like
sad.
it couldn't even be. So somewhat, couldn't take a slightly different.
All
tack
right.
on
Let
it.
me say this real quick because I don't want to get sued.
And Mike Murphy, you're welcome to come on the podcast.
Oh, I'd love to have Murphy on here. I don't think he.
So,
sorry.
all right,
Go ahead.
I got one more, and then we have a doozy of a close. Anything from you, sir?
I don't think so. I've been my life is taken over with trying to imagine what would happen if Mr. Trump won. It seems to be all anybody wants to talk about.
Yeah, I think I've been invited to a couple of those recently too. All right, let's move on to our favorite pastime, America's pastime, baseball. The Yankees are 10-2. I'm shocked. I haven't watched much at all still yet. I still can't quite get myself oriented towards it. But that wasn't the big news this week. The big news this week was that baseball is coming to West Sacramento. Did you hear this?
The Oakland Athletics.
For the next 2 years, the A's will relocate to a triple A ballpark shared by the Sacramento River Cats.
I mean, what's the seating? What's the total seating? 10,000, 8,000, something like that. It's some fairly small number. The good thing is it's the Athletics, so you're only going to have about 2,500 people show up.
I think literally 5,000 people came to opening day.
It's so sad. It used to be such a great franchise.
They gave us the DH. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but other than that, they won 3 years and 3 World Series in a row.
Yeah, in 72, 73, 74.
So anyhow, the A's who moved from Oakland to Oakland from Kansas City in 1968 expect to open a new ballpark on the Las Vegas Strip in 2028. To complete their relocation, though, they have yet to break ground. And in the interim, Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred thanked the Sacramento region for providing the A's with a temporary home following years of contentious relocation talks. In Oakland, they will just be called the A's for the next 2 years.
What if we call them the Oakland A's? What are they going to do?
They're gonna
What are they going to do?
They're gonna bind your hands and send you to baseball jail.
It's like Giancarlo Stanton. If I call him Mike, what's he going to do? I don't get it.
But never mind.
Henceforward,
all right.
Henceforward, we should be known as the wonderful A's or the California Athletics. How's that enforced? What if you just say
the amazing A's?
The amazing
A's. Those are the
I'm
Mets.
not saying that.
Who are what now? 4? Are they 4-7?
4-7 on their way to a 60-win season.
They're not a 1-11 like the Marlins.
On their way to a 12-win season.
Okay, speaking of sports, if we got nothing else, I want to round us out with some groundbreaking news in women's basketball history. Ready?
Sure.
Do you know, a bit of a history lesson. Do you know that the women's teams were not allowed to have brackets until 2022? Think about that. And talk about progress, better late than never, but progress. And what that has done, because of course when, I had a bracket, it's not broken completely, but I won't talk about my bracket. But you know what? Just how we love March Madness, and even just now allowing the women to have brackets, and what that does to encourage people to talk more about the women's teams, to watch them. Now they're being covered, and this is the reality. People used to say, "Oh, women's sports, who's interested?" Well, if you can't see it, you won't be. But when you see it, you realize, oh.
No idea. It's just until 20. Did you know women weren't even allowed to hold the bracket?
My God, they can't even fact check anymore. It's bad enough they can't write. They can't even fact check.
Oh man, it's so good. There were no brackets. We have finally reached the point in society where the women can have brackets.
This civilization, when its history is written, it will be said that we were simply consumed by stupidity at the end of it.
I'm starting to think that movie is getting more and more like.
It just became so dumb we couldn't even breathe anymore.
Idiocracy. I think that movie is becoming more prophetic every single day.
I'm going to fact check when we started to bracketize women's basketball.
Okay. Well, I for one, I'm glad we now have brackets, and that is a wrap, ladies and gentlemen, for episode number 177 of the Unregulated Podcast. I thank you all for tuning in every week. You inspire us to keep going, and we need to start thinking about that 200th episode party that we will say we're going to have, but probably won't.
Actually, I find many of our listeners tedious, but okay, we'll go with yours. You know what? Namaste. That's the best I can manage.